boy, this is gonna be good, I can tell.
Oh, you thought I was done? Bitch, please. Bitch, please. Welcome back.
Okay, what you're reading in the screen right now is a recap from part 1 of this 3-part video series concerning the Employee Withholding Certificate Form W-4 from both the Internal Revenue Code and the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 26. On part 2, we cover Publication 515 and Notice 1392. We also cover the legal definition of employee and employer from the Employment Taxes Regulations. We also read from the IRS website Notice 2005-76 and have established that according to Notice 2005-76, the sections of the law provided in the IRS website in that notice are the same exact sections of the law that I have been providing you in my videos. And it also establishes another fact, that if there were any other sections of the tax law in existence that apply to anyone else besides those mentioned in it, the Treasury Department would not have an issue utilizing those sections of the law as well.
But wait! There's more!
Now to the third and final part of this video. Exactly what type of employee is required by the tax law to furnish a Form W-4 to his employer? And for that, we'll let the Treasury Department and the IRS answer that question for us. Welcome to Publication 15, Circular E, the Employer's Tax Guide. The first thing that we need to learn is what it tells us on page 10 under Federal Government Employers. It tells us that the information in this publication, including the rules for making federal tax deposits, applies to federal agencies. And of course, unless if you do work for a federal agency of some sort, then your employer should follow the rules contained in Publication 15. But if you don't work for a federal agency and you only work for a private company, a private employer, then why would your private sector employer be following rules that apply only to federal agencies? It makes no sense at all. And on top of that, according to Publication 15, why is it that only federal agencies are being required to ask for a Form W-4 from their employees and not the private sector? For that, let's go back to the code and find our answer. Let me break it down for you. As we have learned in Part 1, under Employment Taxes, Section 3402A1 is the part of the code that commands that employers deduct and withhold a tax upon the wages of their employees. Section 3402F1 is the section that explains that employees receiving wages shall be entitled to a withholding allowance. Section 3402F2 is the part of the code that explains that every employee that begins work with an employer is to furnish that employer with a withholding certificate. In the accompanying regulations, Section 3402F5-1 is the part of the regs that explain specifically which form is the employee's withholding certificate. In this case, it's Form W-4. In Section 3401 is where we find the definitions of employee and employer. And it tells you that employee includes an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, a state or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia or any of their agencies. And at this moment, I invite you to pause the video, take your time reading the definition of employee, and see if anything that you do for a living fits within the categories mentioned in that definition. If your type of employment does fit within the category mentioned in the definition of employee, then obviously Form W-4 is required of you. But if it doesn't, then why are you filling out Form W-4 for a private sector company? Now let's see what the IRS has to say concerning what you have just read and seen and heard. Under tax withholding for government workers, it tells you, in most cases, individuals who serve as public officials are government employees. Therefore, the government entity is responsible for withholding and paying federal income tax, Social Security, and Medicare taxes. They must also issue a Form W-2 wage and tax statement to a public official. Further down under public officials, elected officials and public officers, it tells you that the Internal Revenue Code section 3401C indicates that an officer, employee, or elected official of government is an employee for income tax withholding purposes. And a little bit further down, they even provide you a definition of what a public office is. You can pause the video and read that on your own time. Moving forward from there, they even provide you an example of what public officers are. And it says that it includes the president and the vice president, governor or mayor, secretary of state, a member of a legislative body such as a state legislature, county commission, city council, school board, utility or hospital district, a judge, and so on and so forth. The list continues with other types of employments that are listed as public officers. Now you start to understand that when Notice 1392 under what compensation is subject to withholding and requires a Form W-4, it tells you that compensation paid to a non-resident alien for performing personal services as an employee in the United States is subject to graduated withholding. And you can go to the IRS website and type in federal income tax reporting and withholding on wages paid to aliens. Any and all reference that you see concerning any form, publication, or notice has everything to do with employment tax withholding performed on non-resident aliens by U.S. employers. So at this point, I hope you start to understand what employment taxes are truly about and not what you have been led to believe that they are about. To the point where you can now stop and say,
Oh my God. I get it.
So, if you appreciate the content of my videos, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share it with everyone you know. And I will see you on my next video.